Good morning, afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where in the world you are watching this. Welcome to Afternoons with Aces, the implementation series. This is session 6, Process Playback, a strategy for success. This is the 6th of a planned 10 sessions on implementations focused on Oracle Fusion Cloud, but I would think many of these topics can be used for any system. Let's go through our agenda. We will go through some brief introductions to the Oracle Aces giving this session today. We will talk about the series overview, what we're trying to accomplish, what we've done so far, and what is yet to come. We're recording this around Christmas, so it's kind of good that I use yet to come, ghosts of yet to come, or Scrooge and all that, right?
Wait, Scrooge and me in the same sentence? Really? That's what we're going with?
That's what we're going with today, yes. What is the purpose of a process playback? We will go through that brief definition and that terminology, talk about what the keys are to a successful session. We will discuss what it means to encourage interaction. That certainly is a key, getting the customer to contribute, have feedback, and make sure it's a give and take session. And then we'll discuss enforcing specifics. And I will tell you, of all the things that we're going to discuss today, that is, in my opinion, probably the most important. Introductions. Who are the ACEs? My name is Thomas Simkiss. I've been an Oracle Applications implementation consultant for the most part since 1998. I've done stints with small consulting companies for the most part. I did a brief stint with Deloitte. I did a stint as what I call a straight job, where I was not doing implementations. I was an executive vice president of ERP systems for the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. I got my Bachelor of Arts degree of Economics and Business Administration from Versailles College back in 1995. I got my Juris Doctorate, which is a fancy schmancy name for sending out a law degree, from the James A. Beasley School of Law of Temple University back in 2002. I'm an Oracle Applications ACE professional. I got my Oracle ACEness in 2014, 1 year after my counterpart, Lee Briggs. I got my OATUG Star Presenter of the Year in 2017. That is an award that they give out to the partner or resource that gave the best or greatest number of presentations that were widely regarded throughout the year. 4 years after my counterpart got the very first one of those awards given. And I'm a member of I'm a CPA in Pennsylvania, and I'm a member of the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and American Bar Association. I'm currently serving as the Senior Vice President of Revenue for Oracle Cloud for a consulting company based in Edison, New Jersey. Lee.
You take all the fun out of it when you start saying you got stuff after me, when I can't really lord it over you. But good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Lee Briggs. I have worked with the Oracle application since 2001. In fact, at the time of recording, it will be 24 years and 51 weeks. I will have moved over, came over to the States to become an Oracle consultant. I started with 11i. For the first 13 years, I did EBS implementations. Since 2013, since cloud has become generally available, I have focused exclusively on the cloud applications, the Fusion applications, whatever the term was at some point. It did start with Fusion, moved over to cloud for a little while, and then it's back to Fusion now. I got my degree from the University of Leicester. My degree's in accounting and finance. I got my master's in management studies from the University of Northampton. Both of those were last century, which seems so long ago now, but I digress. I got my Oracle ACEness in 2013. I originally was an ACE associate, as we all were back then. I've been an ACE Pro for the last, I think since 2018, I got my ACE Professional. As Tom said, I got it before him, Nina. I am also an OATUG Star Presenter of the Year. I am the inaugural Star Presenter of the Year for OATUG. I got that in 2014, the first year that award was in place. So that is, and I work as a ERP solution architect. So my job is basically going to clients who have either bought Oracle, and I help design their systems, or I will do assessments for clients who are already live with Fusion applications, and I can assess where they stand, how their application's functioning, maybe give them some ideas for improving on some of their functionality or improving their efficiencies. So this series is called the implementation series. We're really looking at, we wanted to get back to basics. So Tom and I, between us, have 50 plus years of experience implementing Oracle. We start going all the way back to e-business 10.7. Tom, I think that was your first system when you were even a client.
Sure
you
was.
a consultant at that point. All the way through to 25C, 25D, whatever is current as this recording. And it's really looking at how to get your implementation across the line as smooth as possible. If we've made mistakes, we've learned from those mistakes, but we've tried to take the benefits of those mistakes and apply them to every implementation we have going forward. It's great sitting in on sessions where folks will talk through, hey, we've implemented this once. That's great. You got your solution in place, you got it live, but you've done it once. Having folks who've done this stuff 50, 60, 70 times, that's where you start really getting the okay, and here's everything we learned going through that. And these 10 sessions are really looking at that kind of stuff. So we started with, what defines a successful implementation. We started going through Tom and I's approach for implementing, which is essentially using reports as the starting point. Even though it's the last thing you get out of the system, it's the starting point. If we know what the report is, we know we can drive a lot of the architecture from those reports. And then getting into the details of the implementation itself. So getting your requirements, turning your requirements into use cases, getting them into test cases so you can make sure that you map everything. We talked through getting successful data conversions going across, so how you map the data, how you're going to validate the data, how it's a repeatable process every time. Our last session we had, we recorded just after the holidays, was around nail the accounting. So how you go through and verify that the accounting is correct. Not necessarily being accountants, but deriving the accounting, making sure that you're getting the correct accounting out of each transaction as per your client's requirements. Now this session we're looking at process playback. So back in the day, it used to be called a conference room pilot. The terminology that the consulting world seems to be moving to is process playback. So it's looking through getting a successful process playback. And then the 4 sessions we've got in the future around testing, how you test, what you test, why you test. Looking at the integrations, conversions, extensions we have out there. So whether you refer to it as Chemly, whether you refer to it as Rice, whether you refer to it as Rice W, or as a beloved former PM used to call them, gazintas and gazouters. We'll talk through those. And we get the important stuff. I mean, this is all important, but this is considering folks who don't touch the system. So looking at change management, how's this going to affect folks who don't touch the system on a daily basis? What does it mean for your vendors? What does it mean for your banks? What does it mean for your customers? What does it mean for your employees? Looking at how you can try and get ahead of the changes that they're invariably going to face. And the last session we have, the last one in this series that's currently planned, is lather, rinse, and how do you repeat? You've gone live with something, you've implemented something, you've taken on new functionality, done whatever. How can you take the basis of what you've just done to use it in the future? Because if you've had a successful implementation, you're going to need to do another implementation because you've got, you've got all that goodwill on your back there. So that's what these sessions are. This session is the session around the process playback. So Tom, what is a process playback?
Thank you, Lee. As Lee said, they used to be, and actually sometimes still are, conference room pilots. I prefer that term only because it's what I've been used to my entire career. But they are used to present the proposed solution to the customer. I will say that if you're just demonstrating the solution, you are misunderstanding its goal. It's to show how the stakeholders, how the configured business processes work in the system using best practices and I'm going to say prototype configurations. Very rarely you get your configurations right or perfect the first time. That first process playback session is really, did we understand the requirement and does the system demonstrate that requirement? They're typically done in the project design or configure phase, with a prototype phase if you're using the Oracle Success Navigator methodology. They are used to validate your requirements, and we're going to go through this process in gory detail in the next slide, but you really need to align the business units with Fusion standard functionality and get feedback to refine the configurations. I will tell you that when I do these sessions, or people that work for me do these sessions, the intention of a process playback is to show the process, right? So, whether it's supplier invoice to payment or period end close to financial reports, it is a process that you are putting in place. It is to show how those processes map to the requirements that the customer gave you, or you pulled from the requirement, pulled from the customer, and then really show a traceability. So what are the keys to a successful session? The first thing you need to do is tell a story. Don't start in the software. If you are starting in the software without any exposition or explanation, you are doing a disservice to your customer and certainly not executing the process in the best way. The process needs to be who, what, and how. Who is acting in the system? What are they doing? What's the requirement? What's the process? And how is that requirement demonstrated? What I have here in the video is 4 deliverables. These numbers come from the Oracle Unified Method. So the numbers might be different depending upon your implementation methodology or your systems integrators methodology. The names may be different, but the documents should be the same. So you should have a to-be process flow, whether that is from the Oracle Modern Best Practices, from your process flow that is unique to your company, or whether it's from the customer. Those process flows should tie to a requirement. One process flow can support or reconcile against many requirements. Many requirements can be supported by one or more use cases. And then those use cases should tie to one or more test cases. If you do your job well, you should have multiple use cases to support a requirement, and you can have one or more test cases to support those use cases. All of those things together are used to create what's called a requirements traceability matrix. And that is how you go from the requirement all the way to your configuration to how you demonstrate that. And we will hit this at the end, but it is super critical that you are very specific about the process you're showing, the requirement, the use case, and the test case. How do all those things reconcile together so that the customer knows what they are looking at and why they're looking at it?
And if you've found this video without looking at any of the other webinars we've done, we actually covered this in a ton of detail in, I think it was our third session of this series. So it is requirements to test case. We actually dove into We dove into a lot of detail around turning requirements into test case. So I would suggest if this terminology here is new to you, or if something here sparked interest, revisit that session 3, requirements to test case.
Thanks, Lee. So this slide that we have here, show the process before the system, and I'm just hitting this really harder than I did on the prior slide, but this is a very simple process that we're looking at here, right? This is essentially requisition to receipt. Start with the requisition, maybe you get a quote, you get the quote back, you convert that to an analysis, you convert that to a purchase order, you receive it, you match an AP, you show the accounting, you show the payment. Walk through this process. Why is that important? This process covers, generally speaking, 2 business areas. It covers purchasing and it covers payables. You may have 2 consultants that are covering these processes. If you are only showing requisition to receipt, well, you're going to stop at that received goods or services. But, and I hit this pretty hard in our last session, you got to make sure you show the full accounting. You got to make sure that you show that invoice is matched to the purchase order, and you've got to show the full process. So if you don't do it in one session, make sure you allocate time to demonstrate this to the customer. Make sure they understand it, make sure they can explain it, and make sure they understand how it relates to them.
So the important part of knocking out, this isn't just a consultant, right? So typically on engagements, you'll have a consultant who is responsible for the purchasing area, and that encompasses kind of the top right corner of this slide. You're going to have an accountant, whether it's an AP analyst or you actually have accountants in there as well, so they can see the accounting. So that's at least 2, possible 3 consultants in there. You're also going to have subject matter experts from the client side. And they're the ones you've got to actually be able to explain all this to all the way through. You've got to have a requisitioner in there. Now, is the requisitioner just going to sit there for requisition and receipt and get out of there? Maybe, maybe not. But they at least need to be able to show how their part relates to the entire thing, how it's important that the requisitioner, these purchase orders are getting received, whether that is a requisition, whether it is a centralized receiving dock where you have folks who do receives and putaways and all that kind of thing. But having all those people in there so they can see their process, what they need to do, where they fit into this entire picture. Again, it's a story. This really is, as well as an IT process flow, as well as a ERP system flow, it is a story that these users work through their entire lives. So we've got to make sure that they understand their part of the story and how they're involved in that.
Thanks, Lee. Before we get to the next one, I will just say, and Lee hit on this, it's really difficult to get many users to sit through these things. There's always a feeling of, I don't cover purchasing, so I don't want to sit through that flow, or I don't cover payables, so I don't want to sit through that flow. And it is a disservice to you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, if you don't do that. I said this on our last session. I said it a few times. I get a lot of complaints from customers that they don't see the end-to-end flow. And I will tell you, if you want to see the end-to-end flow, and you should, you have to be willing to put the time and effort in to see that end-to-end flow.
And it's not just, I'll sit in the session. You've got to be active in there as well. So many sessions that I have, and again, I'm not great. I love calling people out in these sessions, not just because it's fun to do, but if you're going to be in there, at least pay attention. Don't be on emails. Everyone's got jobs to do. We get that. Don't be heads down in your emails. Don't be heads down in your spreadsheet. Look what's going on, because otherwise you're going to get called out in the session. If the consultant, whoever's doing this presentation, is doing their job, they're going to call you out. They're going to make sure you understood it. And there's nothing worse than saying, I wasn't paying attention. They're going to call you out on that. So be there, be present. Now, the other part I'll have, I'm going to give you two comments on this. One comment I've had, a lot of entities I see, a person is responsible from their job. They are going from this part to that part. They could care less what's before. They could care less what's after it, but they're responsible for their job. That is a horrible mindset to have in there. I get it. It's a job. I'm here to do my job. I'm here to get paid and go home at 5 o'clock. I get it. I really do get it. But you've got to know what's come down the pipeline that you're processing and how it's going to impact on somebody else. It is crucially important on those sessions.
Thanks, Lee. All right, that takes us to how to conduct a process playback session. Lee?
Thank you, Tom. So this really is broken out into really two sessions, right? So prepare for it. As a consultant, prepare for it. So define scope. What are you going to show? We saw on the previous slide, we had a flow chart with, I think, 9 different areas on there, specific parts. What are you clearly going to demonstrate in the session? Who are you going to have in there, but what are you going to show? What are you going to demonstrate? Now, as well as what you're going to demonstrate, set objectives for the audience on what they're there to do. Are you looking to use a system to help with some of the requirements, to validate that you've got these requirements down, or to make sure that you have it prepared already? Is this a process playback for training purposes? So we've already gone through everything, it's been signed off, and I'm going to use the same process for my training. Am I going to use it for gap analysis? I'm going to come on to gap analysis in a little while. But what are we there for? Are people there to pay attention? Are they there to be involved and to call out where it maybe doesn't meet what their intent was? But what are we looking for? Now, I want to make sure that the environment is prepared. I'm not going to go into this with slide decks. If you go into a process playback with just slide decks, you're really doing a disservice to your client. So many of these process playback I've seen where it is I'm going to show you a couple of a couple of processes, and then we're going to look at a slide, and then we're going to go into an Excel spreadsheet and then go back to slides. Yeah, that doesn't work. You're paying for a system to be configured. Show me the configurations. Show me real people in this instance. I've seen a bunch of demos, and if you've bought the Oracle Fusion applications, you've seen demos from Oracle. I've seen them where I will use one user, and this user can do payables and receivables and fixed assets and projects and general ledger and purchasing and HR. That person doesn't exist in the real world. They really don't. So you've got to make sure that as you're preparing this environment, you're actually going through as I'm going in as Bob Requisitioner. Bob Requisitioner is a real requisitioner. If Bob Requisitioner submits a requisition, I know that Sally Approver is going to have to approve this. I need to have at least two users at that point. Bob Requisitioner to show the requisition, Sally Approver to go and approve it. And it's real people. And if I don't use Bob and I use Peter Requisitioner, it shouldn't go to Sally Approver. It should. You've got to have all those scenarios in place. It can't just be, well, yes, I'm logged in as Casey Brown, and Casey can do everything. Got to use real folks out there. Now, you'd also have to have playback scripts. These playback scripts will show exactly what you need to do in the instance, but more importantly, it shows what the client needs to do in the instance to make sure that they can get through these processes correctly. Too many times I've seen people do, and I'm entering AP invoices for a payable session. Okay, I'm going to put the invoice number in, I'm going to put the supplier name in. I'm not going to put a description for the invoice. I'm going to come down to lines, put my accounting in again, no description if I'm just keying it in, and hit submit. Well, that's great, but that's what the client saw, so that's what the client's going to do. You've got to really treat all these sessions as trying to get your clients to be the best possible version of themselves they can be by using the system to their advantage. If they don't put in these descriptions when they're live, that's not your problem. If the script told them to do it and they didn't do it, shame on them. But if you're already being lazy and showing them stuff that they haven't seen, they're not going to know about it and they're going to get upset with you. So having those scripts and making sure you follow those scripts. Yes, I have a lot of my people print the scripts out, follow it word for word. I don't care if you know the system, follow it. Print it out, and if you printed it out, you're showing you've got scripts. It's going to presumably be a document you're going to hand over to the client as well. You also in there want to include the test data. Don't pick a supplier in the session. There's nothing worse than picking something that you haven't tested. I think I mentioned in the last session we have out there. Use Bob Supplier. Use Bob Supplier for everything. Use Bob Supplier for $1,000, and I know that I'm matching to this purchase order. It's always going to be this purchase order. If the client says, hey, can you go and use Sally Supplier? No. Let me get through the script as I've prepared it, and then if you want to see this as a separate stage, I'll take a lunch and learn. If we've got time at the end, we can go through there. But the worst thing you can do in any of these sessions is do something you haven't prepared. At best, it may work. At worst, you're going to look like a fool because you either haven't tested it or you've gone off script and shown that you weren't prepared for this. The final part we do when we're preparing for these sessions is schedule the session. Get it on calendars, invite folks, invite the business users, invite the functional leads, the SMEs, the process owners. They all have to see it. The previous slide we had 9 possible areas out there. We had requisitions, we had requests for quotes, we had purchase order, we had receipts, we had invoices, we had payments. 7. It was 7 areas. I think we had a couple of slides there for generating accounting.
Got the quote. That's okay. No
there
problem.
We go. So we have those 7 areas out there, possibly 8. However, you need folks from each of those areas in that session so they can see how it fits in there. Make sure you have their undivided attention. The last part that you're going to be preparing for all this is you need to be recording these sessions. Even ideally, you want everyone in the room. One of the great things that we came out of COVID was everyone figured out how to work remote. The bad thing about COVID from a working point of view is everyone wants to be remote. There are some sessions that you want to be able to see people's faces, and even being on camera, folks don't go on camera. So being on camera, I cannot see everything because I'm presenting, but I want to be able to look someone in the eye when we do these sessions and say, yeah, you didn't get this, but I want it recorded as well. So if there is someone that missed it through sickness or whatever, we've at least got proof that you went through everything. Yes, you saw this out of scope. Tom's big point out of there is, I never saw that. Yeah, I've got a recording that says you did. That's not there to be confrontational. It's, yeah, I know we've gone through a lot of these, probably didn't see it, but yes, here it is, it's in this session. So that's on the prepare process. What do you actually do when you do this playback session? So to Tom's point, we want a story out there. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want an introduction. Why are you here? What are you trying to show? What is the scope of what you're going to show? What are they going to see? One of our old colleagues we used to have, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you what I showed you. That's what you do for each of these sections. So you started out with, this is where we're fitting in. We've got a whole new ERP system, it means financials, it's payables, receivables, fixed assets, projects, general ledger, cash management, whatever. We're here today to talk about this specific part. We're going to walk through that process. I am going to be live in the instant. Everything you are going to see, we are going to be live, not PowerPoint only. Now, to the prepare stage, get slides of everything you're going to show, screenshot by screenshot. You don't want to use them, but we've all had network issues, or I haven't been able to connect to the printer, or to the screen, or there's an issue with a network or whatever. Stuff's going to happen. Prepare for it. Have the deck ready in case you need to go to it, but you want to show in the system. And we're going to show beginning to end, soup to nuts. This is what we're going to go through. In this slide, we had a couple of slides back where we had nine areas. You're going to show everything. You're going to show a requisition. You're going to show approving it. You're going to show turning it to a request for a quote. You're going to get the quote back. You're going to do a quote analysis. See, I got it that time, didn't I?
You did.
I've got purchase orders. I've got receipt. I've got the invoice. I generate the accounting, and I generate the payment from it. That was the 9 we had out there. As you go through, you've got to highlight the key stuff that you had out there. So, yes, I've shown this process. Oh, you wanted to be able to track the supplier name. Did you see I put that in there? So let's go through that slide. I entered this purchase order, but we have everything out there. The supplier name's out there, and that's meaningful to you, and you captured your part numbers or whatever. The meaningful stuff, the part that they had use cases, test cases, and requirements for, you call that out. You specifically call that out and make sure that people have seen that stuff. Because once they've seen it, it's acceptance. Once it's acceptance, I don't need to come back to that. Someone may say, hey, where did that supplier go? Absolutely, let me go back to it. It's up here. But you don't need to go back to that. Now, a key part of consulting, and this is a consulting thing, you figure out what works best for you. I've worked with Tom for 25 years. We have vastly different approaches to all of that. Tom goes in and he doesn't bully people, but he gets a decision made. I'm a nice English guy. I don't do that, but I can be quite charming, and it works for me. The point of all this is you want to make sure you've got interaction with the folks who are in front of you and the consultants. Yeah, ask questions, interrupt me as I go through this. Let me go through this, take notes, go through the gaps. Did you see that, Bob? I want to make sure that was really important to you. Did you see that out there? Make sure these folks are engaged, because if they're not engaged at the beginning, they really aren't going to be engaged at the end of this entire process, and you've lost a big trick there. So come up with silly games. We've got one of the consultants who works for me, tells dad jokes. The kid is 25, I think, and he tells dad jokes, and they are awful. But people love them. And they go to these sessions for, okay, here it comes, there's a dad joke coming, there it is, yay! It works for him in these sessions. So make sure they're interactive, make sure you're getting something from it. As we said, take notes as you go through these, but most importantly, get the feedback. Yes, that worked for me. No, there's an issue there. Can we please revisit that? That supplier's wrong. This information's wrong. It's got to be documented. If it's a pain point, hey, this is going to take forever. Is there something you can do? Yes, let me take a look at it. Document it. You have to come back to this. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. So make sure all of this information that you get, the feedback you have, is documented someplace.
Okay. So what do we mean by encourage interaction? We're going to drill down to these a little bit more, but essentially come in with an open mind. That is for both parties, for the implementer and also for the customer. Don't focus on the past, be open to the future. So what that means is especially for the customers, please do not focus on this is how we do it today. This is how we need to do it in the future. Again, that's why you have requirements. That's why you have use cases. Bring your experience and your expertise to the session. So that means interact. Okay. Challenge the current process. Question what is being shown. All right. So is the process, does it relate to what you were expecting to see? Does it relate to what you needed to do? Speak up. You need to be heard. And again, as Lee said, I'm a real big fan of in-person process playback sessions. Certainly for the first one. Follow-ups, I don't necessarily mind if they're teams, but if they are teams, or Zoom or whatever it is, and this now I'll get to my implementers, you should really insist that people are on camera. You want to make sure that people are paying attention. As Lee said, you want your presence, not just your presence. You really want to make sure that you are there in the moment. You are participating, you are paying attention. And, as Lee said, I have a different way of doing this, but there are ramifications if you're not paying attention. And one of mine is in my projects, you have to grade these scenarios. Red, green, yellow. It didn't work, and why didn't it work? What's going to take to make it work? Yellow, it kind of worked, but it needs to be tweaked. Okay, what does have to be tweaked? Or if it's green, it's good. When I do these sessions, if I show a process and it's green, I don't revisit that process until the end. And you, Mr. Customer, do not get to change that back to yellow or red without explaining why. That's if you're going to change it back, I'll tell you, if I'm running the project, that's a change order. And then, of course, start with why won't this work rather than this won't work. Specifics, right? All right, so let's drill down a little bit more of these. Come in with an open mind, collaborate, don't focus on the past. Again, this gets to the consultant as well as the customer, right? So if you've shown this process multiple times, if the customer wants to see it again, hey, I'm sorry, that's what we are paid to do. If it's a T&M, that's definitely what we're paid to do. If it's fixed price, you as a consultant encourage interaction. Don't worry about the past. What's it going to take to get you to accept it this time? Have those expectations laid out ahead of time. That gets to Lee's slide from a few minutes ago about how you prepare. Make sure the script shows it. I would really kind of encourage you, Mr. Consultant or Mrs. Consultant, have a mini session before. Meet with the customer ahead of time to understand, hey, if I show this in a room full of people, is this going to meet the requirement? And really have open and honest feedback as you go through those sessions. Next is bring your experience and expertise to the session. You are the customer. You're the one that we're creating this solution for. Please bring your knowledge of how things need to work, how your city or organization or county or company needs to transact, and how your requirements were derived, and how the system is supposed to meet those requirements. And then you got to bring your expertise. That is you, the consultant. Why did we configure it this way? Why am I showing it this way?
So a tweak on the verbiage that Tom used there, and a lot of this stuff is interpretation, not how the system needs to work, but what do you need to get out of it. Too often people be like, no, I need to be able to go to this screen to put this in, and I need to go to this screen to go to this thing because we've done it for 30 years and blah, blah, blah. Great, I'm hearing it. What do you need to get out of this? You've said stuff there. What do you need it for? Okay, A, do we know about it? If we know about it, then we probably have it solved already. Or if we don't know about it, okay, well, it's the first we're hearing about that. Can you explore a little bit more about that? It turns into another 17 requirements you didn't know anything about, but you've documented and we've included that interaction in there and we've got it through there. So it's not how should it work, it's what do you need to get out of it. Again, a lot of the times, the client probably won't have the expertise with the system. So it's taking that terminology and saying, you need this, great. This is how we get this out of there.
Thanks, Lee. All right, challenge the current process and question what's being shown. This is really for the customer, okay? Again, I will tell you as part of my implementations that I propose and that I do, I make an implied assumption, or a specific assumption, actually, I should say, that you will accept the standard practice, and that is the Oracle Modern Best Practice. Those are very high level. So typically speaking, before we prepare for these sessions, we will bring process flows. Those should be fairly detailed. It should discuss, what should happen by who and by what within the system. They should have been signed off on before you get to the process playback. Now, bear in mind, the purpose of the process playback is to challenge the norm, challenge the current process. So it doesn't mean necessarily that they've been finalized, but certainly what's being shown has been finalized. You as the user, if you haven't seen it, that's a great time for you to ask why you haven't seen it. But even if you have, make sure you understand what's being shown and why. Okay, how does what is being shown demonstrate the process, demonstrate the requirement? Again, this gets back to our use cases and requirements and test cases. If the consultant's done their job they've mapped the requirements to a process flow. I would tell you, ideally speaking, the use cases should come from the customer. Now, I've seen it done both ways, where the customer writes them and the consultant just puts them in the right format. I've also seen where the customer doesn't write them and the consultant does. Those are usually not as good, but whatever your process is, you should have agreement. And then those use cases should be supported by the test cases so that you really understand what's being shown. And that's kind of when we started this little session here. We said don't just start with the software. You have to tell a story. So make sure you can demonstrate, discuss the process, and also explain, if you're the consultant, why you're showing something. All right, speak up. You need to be heard. This is both sides. Customer, you're going to be held accountable to this. So if you see something that you don't like or don't understand, please take the time and ask questions. Mr. Consultant, Mrs. Consultant, if you are showing something, explain why you are showing it. And by the way, because it meets the requirement is not a great answer. This is how it meets the requirement. This is what you asked for. This is how we understood that, and this is how we feel it meets that need. And that kind of discussion that gets back to the prior slide. If they're showing a report and you, Mr. Customer or Miss Customer, feel that it would be better off in a dashboard, you should state that, but also be prepared to defend why. Why does it need to be a dashboard? Or if it's a dashboard, maybe it should be a report. Be prepared with your facts.
So the other part on there, you've got a ton of people in the room as you go into this. Again, we want to be in person. We want to see folks out there. Inevitably, there will be loud people and there will be quiet people. Everyone's voice needs to be heard as we go through that. And I'll always pick on is a wrong term, but I want to make, I will call out the quiet people because those are usually the folks who are doing most of this stuff and they're kind of overwhelmed by a lot of the items we've seen, but they're also the ones that are doing this on a daily basis. You want to make sure from them that they see what's going on here, they get an idea for it, they see where it's going. Too oftentimes you'll have people monopolizing these sessions. You've got to make sure that everyone who is there, every one of those 7 people that we identified from the 9 areas above, have contributed to it. Yes, I can see how that's working. Yeah, I get that, but I want to make sure it's changed out there. No, we can't do that because don't you remember that Bob needs this report, whatever it is. I want to make sure that all those people are heard because this isn't going to be the only time that we're going to go through these sessions. But the earlier you get this information, the easier it's going to be to get it live, as opposed to finding out when you're doing systems integration testing or user acceptance testing or whatever it is, finding out then that this all needs to get rebuilt. That's going to be a problem. Again, you're not picking on people because it's fun. It is fun, but you're not picking on them because it's fun. You're picking on them. You're picking on them to try and get them to talk up, to make sure that every avenue has been explored. That if there is an issue, someone is saying about it early on.
Thanks, Lee. All right, and then finally with encourage interaction, start with why won't this work rather than this won't work. So, what do we mean there? You got to have a reason. And again, I'll hit this again on 2 or 3 slides when I get to specifics. But who have been in a lot of implementations, people have their arms crossed, and this is both sides, customers and partners. Body language matters, but just a unwillingness for collaboration. And you just hear, oh, this won't work for us. Okay, why not? It's too many clicks, it's too many this, it's too many that. That's fine, too many clicks, but you have to be open to alternative processes. You have to be open to changing and challenging the norm and having conversations. So with that, let's go through a sample process playback script. Lee, you want to talk through what this is?
Absolutely. What we're looking at here is these are specific steps for a scenario. So we are capturing, if I look at the yellow section first, for general ledger, we're looking at specific scenario name. This is GL journal entry, so there will be other scenarios out here. But we're listing step by step, what do you need to do, what's the action, what you're expecting to happen, who does it, what's the note. So we take the basics, and this works. These scripts work everywhere, right? You go to journals, create journal screen. What happens? A screen opens. That's binary. It either does or it doesn't. If it doesn't, you can stop right there because none of this other stuff is going to work for you anyway. But you've also got who is doing this. Now we've got functional lead out here. You would have, general ledger, general accountant, general accounting manager, whatever it is. Anyone with that role should be able to go in there, do that thing. It should happen. If it doesn't, why didn't it go? Okay, next thing, enter the journal header details. We're being very summarized here. You can actually have scripts for all this information put a batch name in, put a journal name in, put a period in there, put a source, if you can change the source, put a category, whatever. Put that information in. It's going to save. Either it does save or it doesn't save. Yeah, it didn't save, but I also didn't have this field information. Well, no, you didn't follow the script. It saved or it didn't save. Put the lines in, post the detail. You're going down to this kind of level to make sure you've captured what the script is, what you're supposed to do, what should have happened, and what did happen. Same thing for payables. Create an invoice. Can you get to that screen? Yes or no? Can you put the supplier information in? Can you save it? Yes, I can. Does it validate? Does it account? Should I be running create accounting? Should I be running create multi-period accounting? Whatever those processes are, we have those out there. But it's step by step what needs to happen. You can't do 2 without having 1. You can't have 3 without having 2 and 1. It's all built upon itself out there. But each of these steps is giving you test scenarios, test cases, which goes back to your use cases, which go back to your requirements, all the way through there. It's tying back to those to show that, yes, we've seen everything. Yes, it passed. It didn't pass. It was successful. Yeah, it kind of needs some tweaking or flat out didn't work. Here's what we came back to, tracking those results. So did it meet the requirement? Not did it work, did it meet the requirement? Yes. We always use green, yellow, red. I've used green, yellow, red because pretty much everywhere in the world has those for traffic lights, right? So yes, it worked. It's green. It met the requirement. It was so good. It should be documented. It should be carved in stone and held up as a pillar for how to do this. We get to partial. Yeah, it kind of worked, but I need to tweak it. A tweak could be as much as, yes, I saw this invoice go to a group of 6 people and that group should have 7 people. It worked, but there needs to be something on there. Yes, make a document that needs to include Sally or whatever. The horrible thing that cannot come out of this is red. Red is it flat out didn't work. There is no way that this can happen if the system, actually, let me take that back. This could happen if the network went down. Even then, it's not really a red. System's unavailable. Yeah, the script didn't work. Your network went down. But if it didn't work because you didn't test it, that's just unprofessional conduct at that point. Now, where it gets tricky is it worked, but it was like a bad account or whatever. If it's hitting the account that it's supposed to, and you wanted to change the account, in my view, it's green. It worked. It went to the account that you had given me. You want to change the account, that's great. But it went to, we mapped stationary to not stationary. It should have been to stationary. As long as it goes to not stationary, it works. You change it to stationary, it's still going to work. You've showed that it's going to something that's coming to a drop down or whatever, or some mapping. It's working. So it's coming down to those requirements. But every way through here, if it's not green, what happened? Why didn't it meet the requirement? What's it going to take to meet the requirement as we go through that? Don't be afraid of yellows. Reds, if it didn't work because you didn't test it, be afraid of that. You're going to hear about it.
And that gets to more specifics. So if you get a yellow, why is it a yellow? And what does it need to get to green? And that is on the consulting to ask those questions. And as you really do have to, you got to force an answer. I don't like to be that way, but unfortunately it's just a reality. I don't know. That's not fair. That is not fair. I just didn't like it. That's not right. That's not fair. You got to give me specific. So you do have to hold people accountable, and that's where you have to have an escalation procedure. So if you can't get the customer to agree, you got to bring the PMs in. If you can't get them to agree, you have to get the steering committee in. And it could be in the session. It could be, but that is really specific. If you need a Chemly, when can you have it, and show it what the solution would be and when it's completed. If you need a workaround, you got to agree on it so it can be shown quickly. But you really do have to enforce specifics and get that feedback and get it captured in whatever tool you're using to document your results.
And the quickly part there is a tough word on there. It's not like, yeah, I'm going to throw this together quickly. This is still fresh in the memory. We just went through this, and it was a problem. I want to show it to you with this workaround, whatever the process is, while it's still fresh in your mind. Yeah, remember that was giving you a problem there, and we included Sally in there. I just want to show this to you real quickly. It's Sally in there. It's one of the things we actually do completely away from this. When I have assessment projects with clients, they're already live with the system. Some of this stuff is going to be, subledger accounting is a mess. It's whoever defined this did you a disservice out there. Yeah, I can't do much about that in that session. But if it's oh wait, you don't know how to do it. You want another accountant there? You don't have it defined. I'm going to take 5 minutes. Let's go and take a look at this. You may not have access to it, but let's go into test. Let me show you how you would do it. Did you get that? Understand? I can't touch this in prod, but you get the idea of how to do it. It's that kind of thing. You want to make sure it's still fresh in someone's mind. So it's okay, I see what you've done there. Great. Yeah, that's green. We can mark it as green. Still going to document that we did something, but it's going to be fresh in your memory.
Thanks, Lee. Last thing on that one is to Lee's point, that gets to maybe the lunch and learns or the mini sessions. I'm a big believer in mini sessions. You get buy-in from the customer prior to a main conference pilot. First of all, it doesn't leave everything until the end. And B, it allows you to tweak and refine the solution in an iterative fashion. All right, so that takes us to process playback, a strategy for success. Demonstrate the solution, how it meets your requirement, and how the system works. Validate your configurations, validate your chemicals, your device, your objects. You align your business users with user functionality, and then you gather feedback. That is the strategy. That's what you want to do. Don't wait till the end. God, we've been through so many implementations, Lee and I together, or rescue projects, I should say, where we'll visit a customer that's been in an implementation for a year, and they haven't seen the system. Now, I always take that with a grain of salt. A lot of times where I've seen recordings or they have seen the system, they just forget about it, so that does happen. But get that system in front of them early. Make sure you document it. Make sure you get agreement. If you like what you have seen and would like to know more, Lee and I are both on X. I am at Thomas Simkiss. Lee is at BT Lee Briggs. There are our LinkedIn profiles. We do encourage feedback both upon our YouTube channel at Afternoons with Aces and also on X, where you can hit us up on LinkedIn. We appreciate your time and your attendance in watching this video. We'll be back with the next session in some time.
Yeah, I believe the next session is actually going to be around testing. So test, how, what, and why. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, all.